They drew their guns on a black teenager for walking home from school. Wrong hoodie, wrong skin, wrong place. But when he whispered 2 words, "Call Dad," everything changed. Because his father wasn't just a parent. He was a decorated U.S. Army colonel with the power to shake the entire system. What started as racial profiling turned into a national reckoning. This is the true story of a boy they tried to silence, who spoke, stood, and set fire to the lies they built their badges on. That day they pointed their guns at me. Real guns. Not tasers. Not warnings. Just cold, mechanical barrels aimed at my chest like I was a wild animal. And all I did was jaywalk. That's the truth. I had stepped off the sidewalk in my neighborhood, texting my friend Marcus when the sirens wailed. The cruiser squealed to a halt. Doors flung open like a movie, and 2 cops, white aggressive yelling, sprang out, hands already gripping their weapons. "Get on the ground," one of them barked. "Hands where I can see them," the other shouted, as if I had pulled something, as if I was armed. I was 17. Black. Wearing my school backpack, a hoodie, and jeans. Nothing in my hands except my phone, and behind them stood Sergeant Clifford Hayes. He didn't draw his weapon. He didn't need to. His presence was power enough. Clipboard in hand, shades over his eyes, and the smug smile of a man who believed he owned every streetlight in this zip code. He watched me like a hawk, as if daring me to twitch. Why? What did I do? My voice cracked, not from fear, but from disbelief. I hadn't done anything wrong, but in their eyes I already had. I'm Jeremiah Walker, 17 years old senior at Westbridge High School. I've never been to jail. I've never even had detention. My mom's a nurse. My dad, well, we'll get to him. Let's just say I was raised to keep my head down, do what's right, and never give the police a reason. But that day, it didn't matter. That day, just existing was reason enough. They didn't care that I had just left tutoring, that I had a 4.2 GPA, that I was the captain of my school's debate team. All they saw was my skin and a hoodie and the chance to assert dominance. And maybe it would have ended like all the other viral clips. Me cuffed on the sidewalk, maybe worse. But I had one thing they didn't expect. The moment I hit the ground, my knees scraping against the concrete, I realized I needed help. I needed someone bigger than them. I didn't fight. I didn't argue. I just said 2 words as loud as I could. "Call Dad." One of them sneered. "You're not calling anyone." But they were too late. I had already pressed speed dial on my smartwatch before my phone hit the pavement. It was ringing, and my father was answering. Let's rewind a bit. My dad's not just some regular guy. He doesn't show up to school events. He doesn't wear suits. He doesn't talk about work. Most of my classmates think he's a janitor. Some even whisper he's in the mob. But here's the truth. My father is Colonel Isaiah Walker, decorated U.S. Army Special Intelligence with direct clearance to the Pentagon and access to more than these cops could ever imagine. He spent decades handling threats they couldn't spell. But he told me something once. Never flex power to scare people. But if they put your life in danger, remind them who they're dealing with. Sergeant Hayes leaned in. "You got an attitude problem, boy." I looked up at him, still on my knees. "Sir, I suggest you step back. My father's on the line." The younger cop laughed. "You hear that Sarge Daddy's on the line? What's he gonna do? Write a complaint." Hayes's radio crackled suddenly. A cold voice cut through. "This is Colonel Isaiah Walker. Badge number of the officer currently engaging my son now." The sergeant froze. Just a beat. A pause, too brief for civilians, but enough to know something had shifted. I repeat, this is Colonel Isaiah Walker. Westbridge PD, you are detaining a minor without cause. Stand down immediately. Backup is en route from Federal Dispatch. I couldn't see their faces clearly at first, but the change in posture said it all. Their swagger deflated. One officer stepped back. The other lowered his weapon slightly as if it had become too heavy to hold. Then Hayes growled, "Is this some kind of prank?" "Do I sound like I'm joking, Sergeant?" My father's voice rang like thunder over the radio. "I want a live body cam feed sent to the Pentagon. Now. I have senior command listening. If one more hand touches my son, I will personally bring federal investigation down on this department so hard your badge will melt off your chest." What happened next felt unreal. The same cops who'd screamed at me moments ago. Now they were fidgeting, trying to radio for clarification. Hayes was sweating. The clipboard. It was gone. Dropped. Useless. My neighbors began to gather. Phones out. Recording. Whispering. Watching the mighty crumble. And me, I stood up, shaking, but not afraid anymore. "I'm going home," I said. Jeremiah Hayes said through gritted teeth, "You stay right there." But I turned. My dad was still on the line. "Walk away, son," he said. "Let them drown in their own mess." That night everything exploded. News vans parked outside our street. Footage of the arrest hit social media. The words, "Colonel's son," trended by midnight. The police department held a press conference. Hayes was suspended. The two cops reassigned pending investigation. And my school? Let's just say no one called me the quiet kid anymore. But it wasn't just about me. It was about every black kid who'd ever been profiled. Every time someone got cuffed for fitting the description. Every time someone didn't have a colonel for a father to call. This was bigger, and I wasn't done. Because if they could do it to me, they could do it to anyone. And I'd make sure next time they wouldn't get the chance. I didn't sleep that night. Even as the house quieted and the cameras left the driveway, my mind kept replaying those moments. Knees on concrete eyes, on gun barrels. Voice trembling as I called out for my father. I kept wondering, what if he hadn't picked up? What if I didn't have a father who could stop time with a single call? I sat on the edge of my bed, clutching the hoodie I'd worn. The fabric was torn at the elbows from where they tackled me. There was blood on the seam. Mine, from the pavement, and I couldn't stop shaking. The next morning, the sun rose like nothing had happened. Birds chirped. Cars drove by. The neighborhood resumed its rhythm. But everything felt different. Or maybe I did. Mom hovered over me with pancakes and coffee. She didn't speak much. Just placed the plate down, kissed my forehead, and whispered, "Thank God you're okay." But her eyes were red. She hadn't slept either. When I finally stepped out the door to walk to school, I saw neighbors nod from porches. Mrs. Halpern waved with a shaky hand. Mr. Gutierrez gave me a thumbs up like I had won something. And then I saw him, my father, standing at the end of the driveway, arms crossed, military stance, straight as ever. Still in uniform. Still unreadable. "Walk with me," he said. We didn't say much at first. The city was waking up. Trash cans rolled to the curb. Kids chased buses. Sprinklers hissed across driveways. And here I was, walking with a man who could end careers with one phone call. "Why didn't you ever tell me what you really did?" I asked. He looked forward, jaw tense. "Because it wasn't your burden. But I needed you," I said. "And last night, you saved my life." He stopped, turned to me. His voice softened. Son, you should never have needed saving in the first place. He sat me down at the park, same bench where he used to take me for ice cream when I was little. You think power is about yelling louder? He asked, or pointing fingers. It's not. It's about knowing when to speak and how to be heard. I nodded, unsure what to say. I made that call because you were in danger, he continued. But I also made that call for every black boy who never made it home. His eyes welled with something I'd never seen in him, grief. Isaiah Walker isn't just your father. He's a symbol. And now, so are you. When I arrived at school, all eyes were on me. Students paused their conversations. Teachers nodded nervously. And Marcus, my best friend, met me at the steps, eyes wide. Dude, you broke the internet, I laughed. First laugh in 24 hours. People are calling you the kid who called the colonel, he said. They think your dad's in the Avengers or something. I rolled my eyes. Let them think what they want. But inside, I knew the truth. This wasn't about viral fame. This was about something broken, something deep in the bones of this country, something I had seen up close now and could never unsee. I sat in AP government and couldn't focus. Every lesson felt like a lie. Liberty and justice for all rang hollow in my ears. When the bell rang, I didn't move. Mr. Rowe, my teacher, lingered by my desk. You all right, Jeremiah? I looked up. Can I ask you something? He nodded. If I hadn't made that call, do you think I'd be here today? He didn't answer, just swallowed hard. And that silence was more telling than anything he could have said. That night, I lay in bed scrolling through videos of other teens shot, slammed, cuffed for less than what I'd done. I watched body cam footage of kids like me, some alive, some not. And I realized something dark. I was lucky. Not right, not justice. Just luck. That's when it hit me. I couldn't just go back to normal. Not after what happened. Not when others didn't get the same ending. Dad, I said over dinner, I want to do something. He raised an eyebrow. Like what? Speak out. Tell people what happened. Share our story. Maybe help someone else avoid what I went through. My mother looked worried. It'll make you a target. I looked at her. I already was. And so it began. The next day, I recorded a video. Just me on my phone, no edits. Just my story. Hi, my name is Jeremiah Walker. I'm 17. And 2 nights ago, I was nearly arrested or worse for walking while black. The only thing that saved me was a phone call to my father, Colonel Isaiah Walker. But not everyone has a dad like mine, so I'm speaking for those who can't. So no one forgets. So it never happens again. Within hours, the video went viral. Again. But this time, something was different. News anchors weren't just reporting, they were debating. Students across the country started tagging me, sharing their stories. Hashtag #CallMyDad started trending. And then came the threats. Anonymous emails. DMs. Even a voicemail at the school office, you little thug, better keep your mouth shut. But I didn't stop, because I had already seen what silence cost. And then the twist I never saw coming. The department announced a statement. Sergeant Hayes and the 2 officers were placed on indefinite leave. But there was more. A lawsuit. Federal investigation into racial profiling. And they wanted me as a witness. The days ahead weren't easy. Reporters camped outside. Some students stopped talking to me. Others looked at me like I was radioactive. But the truth, I had never been more clear, because for the first time I wasn't just surviving. I was fighting back, and I wasn't alone. I was no longer just Jeremiah Walker. I had become a headline, A symbol, a walking controversy wrapped in a high school backpack. People whispered in the hallways now. Some smiled when they saw me. Others crossed the hallway to avoid me entirely. My friends, they tried to act normal. But even Marcus, who had always been ride or die, started trailing his sentences like he wasn't sure what was safe to say anymore. "Yo," he said one morning, voice low. "You sure you want to keep this going? The feds, the protests, the interviews. You could just lay low. Would you?" I asked. He looked away. "That's the thing, bro. I wouldn't have the choice. The day the Department of Justice showed up, I thought it was over. Not to fight me." 2 black SUVs pulled into the school parking lot like something out of a spy film. Teachers peeked through blinds. A crowd gathered outside the cafeteria. Then came a knock on the classroom door. A man in a sharp gray suit, clean-shaven with a face like carved stone, stepped in. Jeremiah Walker. Every eye turned to me. My heart thudded against my ribs. "Yes, sir. I'm Agent Curtis. I'm with the Civil Rights Division. We'd like to speak with you." I expected an interrogation. I expected more suspicion. Instead, they led me to the principal's office, empty, quiet, respectful. Agent Curtis looked me in the eyes and said, "We've reviewed the body cam footage. Your father gave us access. I want you to know you did nothing wrong." I exhaled. Finally, someone said it. He continued, "We're building a case. Not just against those officers, but the entire precinct. This goes deeper than you, Jeremiah. Much deeper." My throat tightened. "You mean systemic?" He nodded slowly. "And you just became the crack in the wall." Later that week, I found myself behind a podium, outside City Hall, crowd in front of me, microphones everywhere. They asked me to speak. My hands trembled. My voice wavered. But I remembered what Dad said. Use your voice, not to yell, but to be heard. I cleared my throat. They say I'm brave, but I'm not. I'm angry. I'm tired. I'm 17 and I had guns in my face for walking home. That's not brave. That's broken. We shouldn't need power to survive. We shouldn't need colonels for fathers to stay alive. We need justice. For all of us. The crowd erupted, but behind the applause, someone watched. A tall figure in a trench coat. Sunglasses. Hands clenched. I didn't know it yet, but he would change everything. The threats intensified after the speech. One morning, someone threw a brick through our window, wrapped in a note. "Stop lying, you're next." Mom wanted to move. Dad doubled security instead. "We don't run," he said. Not from cowards hiding behind glass, but me. I started to shake in public again. I jumped at loud noises, and every time I stepped outside, I wondered if today was the day someone proved their hate with something more than words. Then the letter came. Handwritten, no return address, Jeremiah. I'm a former officer. I can't say who, but you're right. It goes all the way up. There's a file, evidence, hidden at Westbridge Precinct, locker 317. Trust no one. A friend. My breath caught. Was it real? Was it a trap? I brought it to Dad. He read it once, then again. His eyes narrowed. "We're going," he said. That night, under the cover of darkness, we drove to the precinct. My father wore his uniform, full medals, badges, the works. Like armor. Like a warning. Inside, we were met with stone-faced officers. No greetings, no pleasantries. Locker 3117, the desk sergeant said, tight-lipped. "That's off limits. Evidence, storage." "Not tonight." "It's not," my father replied, flashing a high-level clearance badge I'd never seen before. The man didn't argue. He simply handed over the keys. Inside the locker, a folder. Thick, yellowed, stamped internal use only. I opened it with shaking fingers. What I saw made my stomach lurch. Photos, charts, a list of high-risk individuals by neighborhood. 90% were black. Many were underage, and my name was on the list, marked 3 months before the incident. That night, we sat around the kitchen table, silent. Mom cried softly. Dad stared straight ahead, unmoving. They were hunting, I whispered. They didn't stop me because I did something. They stopped me because they were told to. He finally spoke. It's worse than we thought. The next day, we went public. We handed the files to the DOJ. They leaked. The media exploded. Westbridge PD, accused of racial targeting program. Colonel's son exposes secret list. High school hero uncovers scandal. I was called a whistleblower, a hero, a threat. But me, I just wanted it to stop. Then came the call, from a blocked number, a voice familiar, low, hateful. You should have stayed quiet. Now we're coming for your father. I froze. That wasn't a threat. It was a promise. I ran to my parents. Dad, they said. But he was already packing. Go with your mother, he said. Take the back route. I'll stay here. No, I shouted. You can't fight them alone. He turned to me, eyes blazing. I've been fighting this alone for 30 years. But now I've got you. And that changes everything. The night was loud. Not with sound, but with tension. That kind of tension that hums beneath the skin where even silence feels like it might shatter. Mom gripped my wrist so tightly as we left the house I thought her bones would snap. Dad had ordered us out the back across the neighbor's fence into an unmarked sedan parked 2 blocks down. Keep your head down, he said. And remember, they don't scare us. They just hope we're too tired to fight back. I didn't cry. Not because I wasn't scared, but because if I cried, she would too. And if she cried, we might not make it out. It was my first night away from home in years. We stayed at a secure location arranged by one of Dad's old colleagues, Major Denise Langley. She met us at the gate in full uniform pistol, holstered no nonsense. You're safe here, she said, but you're not invisible. She led us into a cabin deep in the woods. No TV, no cell service, just woodwind and warnings. I sat on the edge of the bunk bed and stared at the wall. My world had gone from teenage drama to federal war zone in a week. And now my father, my protector, was alone in a house targeted by racists with badges. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. Do you trust him? I asked Mom. She didn't hesitate. With my life and yours. But what none of us knew was that the real attack wouldn't come at night. It came the next morning. At 6:13 a.m., a video leaked. Footage from a patrol car's dash cam weeks before my incident. It showed my dad, Colonel Isaiah Walker, being pulled over by Westbridge officers in plain clothes. Guns drawn. No badge shown. A scuffle. No shots fired. But the voiceover, manipulated. The caption, Colonel Walker threatens police in violent encounter. And the headlines, they bit hard. Did the colonel go too far? New evidence paints Jeremiah's father as aggressor, hero or hypocrite. Within hours, the wolves descended, reporters outside the gate, trolls online, and then came the subpoena. They wanted to investigate my father, not Hayes, not the precinct, him. When I heard the news, I punched the wall. Blood ran from my knuckles. I don't understand, I hissed to Major Langley. He served this country. He saved me. He exposed a crime ring, and he's the one they're coming after. Langley looked at me with steady eyes. That's what they do. You shine a light in a dark place, don't be surprised if something tries to snuff it out. That night Dad called. His voice was calm. Too calm. They're building a narrative, he said. Trying to isolate me so you'll back down. Are you? I asked. He paused. No, but I need you to be ready. They won't come for you like they did for me. They'll use whispers, doubt, lies. You need to know who you are before they try to tell you. And then he said something I'll never forget. Jeremiah, if my shield cracks, you become the shield. The next day, I went back to school. Everyone stared. Again. But this time I wasn't ashamed. I walked straight to the front of the auditorium where they were holding an emergency forum on public behavior in crisis. A carefully crafted PR stunt by the district to distance themselves from me and my father. Principal Benson stood on stage with a tight smile. Behind him, a board of school administrators. Jeremiah, he said, we're happy to have you join this discussion. No, I said into the mic. You're not. The room stilled. You're scared. Not of violence, but of truth. You let officers profile me. You let people threaten my father. And now that the world's watching, you want to paint him as dangerous. Gasps, murmurs, phones recording. Let me be clear, my father didn't threaten those officers. He survived them. And now you want to punish him for surviving. The room went silent, until someone stood up. A teacher, Ms. Alvarez. I was there the day they arrested him, she said. Colonel Walker gave me shelter after my husband passed. He's a man of honor. This school owes him. Then another voice, and another, until the auditorium became a chorus. And then came the twist. Langley called. They're trying to indict your father for obstruction, she said, based on the dash cam footage and a falsified report. Can we stop it? We can do more than stop it, she said. We can bury them, but it has to come from you. I didn't hesitate. That night, I made a second video. Raw, unedited, just me in the cabin. They're trying to silence my father, the man who saved lives, the man who raised me, the man who stood alone against corruption until the rest of us found our voice. If they want to drag him down, they'll have to go through me, through us. And we're not backing down. Within 24 hours, it had 10 million views. Senators reposted it. A national rally formed around the hashtag Protecto Colonel Walker. And then came the final straw. An anonymous whistleblower released the full dash cam footage, unedited, and it showed what the world hadn't seen. My father keeping his hands visible. My father warning the officers of his identity. My father de-escalating. And the officers, reckless, racist, provocative. The tide turned. Fast. The precinct scrambled. The DOJ reopened the case with Dad, now a key witness. And Hayes, he disappeared. But I wasn't celebrating, because this wasn't a game. It was a war, and we had just won our first battle. There was a silence that settled after the truth came out. Not peace, no, not yet. But a pause, a breath before the real storm. My father had been cleared of all accusations. The full dash cam footage exonerated him publicly, and the DOJ had placed him under their protection officially this time. But victory didn't feel like triumph. Not when the enemy hadn't paid yet. Not when the one who started it all, Sergeant Clifford Hayes, had vanished like smoke. Every camera crew wanted a piece of the story now. But I wasn't a headline. I was a son, a student, and I wanted justice. One night, Dad gathered us around the kitchen table, the one thing that felt normal anymore. We're not done, he said. Hayes ran because he's scared, and scared men make mistakes. Mom's hands trembled as she sipped tea. What if he's planning something? He won't come for me, Dad said. Then he looked straight at me. He'll come for you. 2 days later it happened. I was leaving school late. Debate practice had run over, and I noticed a car across the street, a dark blue sedan, windows tinted too heavily for state law, engine idle. I froze. Then the driver's side window rolled down, and there he was, Clifford Hayes, out of uniform, out of control, his eyes bloodshot, his jaw tight. "Get in," he said flatly. I stood frozen. "You don't, and I'll make it worse. You want to protect your daddy, right? Then you'll listen." My heart screamed, "Run." But my mind remembered what Dad had taught me. When you face a threat, look it in the eye. I got in. The car smelled like sweat and rage. He didn't speak at first, just drove. Past streetlights, past my neighborhood, out toward the edge of the city. "You ruined me," he finally said. "You and your precious daddy. You think the world cares about you now." He slammed his hand against the steering wheel. I flinched. "They were gonna make me chief," he shouted. "I gave 20 years to this damn city. And how many lives did you ruin in those 20 years? I snapped back, the fear boiling into fury. He turned sharply onto a gravel road, tires spitting dust. "I'll tell you a secret," he said with a twisted grin. "You were always on the list. Since middle school. Preemptive threat. That's what they called it. Your name, your face, your skin." I swallowed hard, my hands clenched. Why, I asked. Why target kids? Because scared people follow rules, he said. And I made the rules. He parked by a dried-out field. No buildings, no houses, just shadows. And I knew then he didn't bring me here to talk. He brought me here to end it. But what he didn't know was that my father was already tracking me. The watch on my wrist. A gift from Dad. Military grade. GPS active the moment I stepped into the car. As Hayes stepped out and walked around toward my door, I saw the red dot flash signal acquired. "Stay calm, son," came Dad's voice through the earpiece hidden in the collar of my jacket. "Help is 30 seconds out." 30 seconds. Hayes opened the door. "You know, if your daddy hadn't interfered, we could have been done with this long ago," he said. "No one would have missed you. Just another thug in a hoodie." I stepped out slowly. "You think killing me will save you?" "No," he said. "But it'll make me feel like I still have power." Then came the roar. Helicopter blades slicing the air. Floodlights bathed the field in white. Drop the weapon. Dozens of voices. Dozens of red laser sights. Federal agents pouring out of SUVs like floodwater. Hayes turned stunned, but it was too late. He dropped the pistol that had appeared in his hand just moments before, and fell to his knees, face lit in shame, powerless. They cuffed him right there, in the same dirt he tried to bury me in. As he passed me, escorted by 2 agents, our eyes met. "You lose," I whispered, and for the first time I saw it fear. Not in me, in him. The fallout came fast. Media outlets ran the footage of his arrest for days. The DOJ launched a sweeping investigation into Westbridge PD. More names, more files, more voices, and more apologies. Empty ones, but we didn't need apologies. We needed change. My father stood beside me as I addressed the community at City Hall one last time. I was almost another hashtag. Another name shouted at a protest. But I lived. So I'm going to speak. I'm going to fight. Not just for me. For all of us. The crowd stood, applauded. Some wept. And this time, when the cameras flashed, I didn't flinch. Later, as we sat on our porch, my father passed me a folder. "What's this?" I asked. "Your acceptance," he said. Full ride. Political science. Howard University. My hands shook. "You think I'm ready?" He smiled. "You were born ready. But now you're made for this." And in that moment I realized they tried to silence me. But all they did was teach me how to roar. They tried to kill my name. Instead, they gave me a microphone. It began as a school assembly, an awkward last-minute event meant to save face after Sergeant Hayes's arrest. But when I stepped onto that stage, something shifted. Not just in me, but in everyone watching. The auditorium was packed. Students, teachers, even the mayor was there. I took a deep breath, gripped the mic, and said, "I'm Jeremiah Walker. I used to be just a kid. Then I almost became a statistic. Now I'm a symbol, but I'm still just a son, a student, a teenager who wanted to walk home in peace." Silence. I scanned the crowd. They pulled guns on me, lied about my father, tried to destroy our lives. And for what? For existing while black, for standing tall when I was supposed to bow. Gasps, murmurs. But here's the thing, I won't bow. I won't stop. I'll keep showing up until every kid who looks like me can walk home without praying to live. Thunderous applause. Even Principal Benson, the man who once called me a disruption, was on his feet. After that, it snowballed. CNN called. Then the Washington Post. Then a speaking invite from the National Youth Justice Summit in D.C. I traveled with my father. City after city. School after school. We told our story raw, unfiltered, and unapologetically black. Kids lined up after every talk. Some hugged me crying. Others handed me folded notes, letters of their own near misses, their fear, their survival. Each one made me stronger. But not everyone clapped. Hate mail poured in. "Stay in your lane. You're lying. Just another woke puppet. You're the problem." But they didn't understand. I had been silent, and silence nearly killed me. Now I spoke like fire, and fire spreads. One night in D.C., I stood alone on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial. The wind whipped around me and the weight of history pressed down. I thought about Dr. King, Malcolm, Tamir, Trayvon, Sandra, George. I whispered to the night, "I'm still here," and in that moment I knew what came next. I returned home to a hero's welcome. Murals of me and Dad appeared across the city, me holding a megaphone hymn with a stern gaze shielding me. Westbridge was changing. The old police chief resigned. A new board formed, diverse, transparent, accountable. Community liaisons were appointed. Body cams became mandatory. Youth forums were created, and I was named their ambassador. Then came the invitation that shook me. The president's office. "You'll have 5 minutes," the aide said. "Make them count." I wore a suit Dad lent me, his tie, his cufflinks. I stood at the podium in the East Room heart-hammering, staring into the eyes of America. And I said, power shouldn't come from a badge or a title. It should come from truth, from courage, from knowing right and choosing it over and over, even when it costs you. I didn't ask to be here. I didn't want to be a name they wrote in chalk on pavement. But now that I'm still standing, I will never sit back. When I returned home, the porch light was on. Just like always. Dad waited with 2 mugs of tea. "You were magnificent," he said. "You really think so?" I asked, voice shaking for the first time in weeks. He nodded. "You didn't just survive Jeremiah. You transformed. But not all wounds heal clean. Some nights I still dreamed of that field, of Hayes's eyes, of the pistol glinting. Sometimes I woke up gasping, other times crying, but never silent, because I remembered what Dad said. Healing isn't quiet. It screams. It breaks. It bleeds. Then it builds. And so I built with my voice, my fists, my pen. I created a foundation, shield and signal, to mentor kids, train communities, and expose systemic racism in precincts across the country. We gave scholarships to kids wrongfully profiled. We sued cities with broken systems, And we won. On the anniversary of the incident, I visited the school again. This time, not as a student, as a guest of honor. They unveiled a plaque outside. Jeremiah Walker, student survivor, speaker of truth. He stood so others could breathe. I traced the letters with my fingers, not for pride, but for every voice they tried to silence before mine. That night I sat under the stars with Dad. "Do you think it's over?" I asked. He shook his head. "No, but we're louder now, brighter." I nodded. And together we watched the sky, two men scarred shaped and made stronger by fire. It had been 1 year, 12 months since they pulled guns on me, 12 months since I called my father and changed the course of their careers and mine. Westbridge was no longer the same city. The sidewalks didn't flinch at every siren. Murals covered cracked brick walls where silence used to live. And in every corner of the community, children looked at me not with fear, but with something more dangerous to systems of hate-hope. But I never forgot. Not the cold pavement, not the look in Hayes's eyes, not how it felt to be both prey and proof. On the anniversary, we held the first ever March of the Unheard. 10,000 people showed up. Some came with signs. Some came with their scars. Some came carrying the names of those who never got to speak. I led from the front, wearing a hoodie with the word "loud" across the chest. My father marched beside me, hand on my shoulder, quiet as always, but never absent. We didn't chant to provoke. We chanted to reclaim, say their names, lift their truth. We will not vanish. As we reached City Hall, I climbed the steps where once only politicians stood and turned to face the people. Then I raised my voice. They tried to erase us. They wrote us off as criminals before we could write our dreams. They held guns to children and called it justice. But we're still here. We are louder, wiser, and unbreakable. This is not revenge. This is remembrance. This is not a phase. This is forever. The crowd roared back like thunder. I closed my eyes and felt their voices wrap around me like armor. That evening I walked home alone, not because I had to, but because I could. No car trailing me, no fear coiled in my gut, just streetlights and the steady rhythm of my heartbeat. And that's when I saw him, a boy, maybe 12, skinny, dark-skinned backpack sagging off his shoulder. He looked up as I passed, eyes wide. "You're Jeremiah Walker," he said, not asking, just knowing. I smiled. "That's me." He swallowed hard. "They say you beat the cops." I crouched to his level. "I didn't beat them. I beat silence." His lips parted. "I want to be like you." I touched his shoulder. "No, be better." Back home, my mother waited with tears in her eyes and cocoa on the stove. Dad stood by the window watching the news coverage of our March commentators, stunned by the scale. He turned to me. "What you did today, they'll teach it one day." I chuckled. "I just told the truth." "No," he said softly. "You gave it a voice." Later that night I sat at my desk. Letters from students surrounded me. One stood out. From a girl in Mississippi. "Dear Jeremiah, they cuffed my brother for nothing. He didn't make it home. But your story made me believe I might. Keep fighting. For him. For me. For all of us." I cried, not out of pain, but out of purpose. Months passed. I was accepted into Howard University. I started Shield and Signal youth chapters in 20 cities. My TED Talk reached 5 million views. I stood before governors, senators, even walked into the UN as a delegate for youth justice. But no matter where I went, I carried 3 things with me: my father's watch, my mother's cross, and the memory of that moment, knees on concrete, praying I'd live long enough to matter. One evening, I returned to the field where Hayes tried to end me. It was empty now. Grass grown back, no tape, no echoes. I walked to the center and planted a stake in the ground. Attached was a plaque. To every black child who survived being seen as a threat before being seen as a child. Jeremiah Walker. And in that quiet space I whispered into the wind, "We are not shadows. We are sons, and we rise." What began with a gun aimed at a child ended with a truth that pierced the nation. They tried to reduce a teenager to a statistic, but they didn't see the fire in his voice or the strength in the father who raised him. This wasn't just about Jeremiah Walker. It was about every voice they tried to silence, every life deemed disposable, and every parent who taught their child to survive in a world that sees them as a threat. In the end, this story wasn't about revenge. It was about redemption, not about hate, but healing. The meaning is simple. We don't choose the battles we're born into, but we can choose whether to run or rise. Every time you speak your truth, you write a new future. Every time you stand up, even shaking, you teach the next generation how not to kneel. Jeremiah Walker didn't want to be a hero. He just wanted to live, and by living out loud, he lit the path for thousands to follow. If this story moved, you hit that subscribe button so you never miss another powerful, real-life inspired drama. Drop a comment below. What would you have done in Jeremiah's shoes? Has your voice ever been silenced? And how did you find it again? Share this video with someone who needs to be reminded. You are not alone. Your voice matters. Your story is power. And don't forget to turn on notifications, because the next story might be yours. They tried to silence him, but now the world hears him forever.